Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we are talking about some things that I would like to see implemented and added to the game. This is not a video just complaining about the game. I really enjoy the first Descendant, but it's also very clear that the devs have been really reactive and responsive to our feedback. And with the season 1 changes coming up soon, I wanted to put out a video that is going over some of the minor improvements that I'd love to see added to the game, and also some bigger picture features that I'd love. This is a large list that I compiled not only through my opinions, but also grabbing a lot of opinions from people on Twitch chat. And so I just kind of wanted to walk you guys through all of the things that I'd love to see added to this game. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. Real quick, this video was recorded 2 days ago, so I don't talk about some of the stuff that was announced for season 1 yesterday. And also, because it's a wish list, I'm not including things that they've already said are coming to the game, such as the changes to crystallization catalysts and the ability to polarize different sockets on different builds on Descendants, because that's something that they've already said is going to be coming to the game. So don't mention it here, but it is something that I really want. All right, let's do this. So we've got 2 categories of requests. One is broad feature requests. These are things that I wouldn't expect to be added by season 1, but things that I'd would love to see implemented into the game. And then our second category is minor improvements in quality of lives. These are things that are more annoyances and things that could be implemented a lot faster that I think would make major improvements to the game. And one thing that I want to point out with some of these requests and things is there are some quality of life improvements to maybe make farming a little bit easier in certain areas, or less frustrating. But my goal with this list isn't to make it so that it's super easy to get everything, or make you be able to craft everything in the game instantly. This is a grinding game. I don't want to remove the grind, but I do think that there's ways that we could implement things to make them more fair and make the game more enjoyable when you're spending hundreds of hours playing it. So to start us off with our broad feature requests, the first thing that I'd love to see is something like an XP arena. If you've played Warframe, Warframe has Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. It is an activity that you can join up with other players. You don't get any other rewards from it, like gold or Kuiper, but you're able to just slay out tons of enemies in an arena that allows you to keep going higher and higher and higher. It doesn't have a stop, and this would allow you to level up your Descendants or your weapons very quickly. I think a feature like this that only rewards XP, doesn't reward anything else, would be really nice, because right now the lengths that we're going as a player base to level up our Descendants and weapons, especially when they need so many catalysts, and with the new catalyst update they're going to need even more catalysts, a enjoyable way to level I think would be huge quality of life. The next broad feature request that we have is a new world tier. Right now we've got normal and hard. In the long run, it'd be really cool to see an extra hard mode, or maybe implement a way to increase difficulty. Maybe you get a little bit more rewards on those difficulties. Maybe you get a little bit more XP. Maybe you get a little bit more gold or Kuiper, but a way to increase the difficulty. Right now, in terms of difficult content, the Colossus bosses are a lot of fun. They were challenging to go through, but in the world right now, especially with the Void Reactor bosses getting nerfed, there isn't anything that's overly challenging to do out in the world once you have a level Descendant, and so keeping the difficulty scaling with our characters would be really cool. The next thing that I'd love to see is a new kind of gold farm implemented. I was thinking maybe a long survival type mission, where you maybe, I'm borrowing some ideas from Warframe here, but similar to Warframe's survival system, where you can work with teammates to try to survive as long as possible. You don't get any XP, you don't get any Kuiper, but you do get gold. I think an even cooler idea would actually be a gold Colossus. I would love to fight this behemoth golden Colossus that doesn't drop weapons, it doesn't drop loot, it doesn't drop anything, but it does drop a ton of gold. And you would have a way that if you just wanted to do boss fighting and farm gold, you could do that. Right now the Colossuses only serve as ways to get kind of mods and open amorphous materials. Seeing something like that for gold farming I think would be really cool. The next thing that I'd love to see implemented is increasing the crafting limit by 1 every 10 mastery rank. Right now with crafting, you know, the longer you play, the more things you get to craft. At your point, you're wanting to craft a ton of things, and it feels really bad just kind of having from the start as a level 1 character with 0 hours played. As someone with 400 hours, I'd love to be able to increase my crafting limit, not by anything crazy. I think right now just getting 2 extra slots would be huge quality of life, and so getting 1 more crafting limit every 10 levels or 10 MR. So right now everyone would be able to get 2, and then once they add MR 30, we would probably cap out around 3 extra slots, would just be additional quality of life. The other thing I'd love to see in terms of researching is the ability to craft duplicates or research duplicates at the same time, but those research duplicates would cost extra space. So for example, if I wanted to build or research a second crystallization catalyst, I could, but it would take up 2 slots to do an extra crystallization catalyst research. And then if I wanted to research another one at the same time, maybe it would take up 3 slots. So I could research 3 catalysts at the same time. It would take up all my research slots, but at least I would have the option to do that. Right now, it's like crystallization catalyst, you need a lot to really max a character or a weapon, and it's just basically impossible to keep up with. So the ability to craft more of them simultaneously would be amazing. Next up, they did say that they are adding pets. When they do add pets, I would love to see them be able to give us auto loot with a large loot radius and maybe an auto dismantle feature. I'm trying not to harp on things that they're already adding to the game too much. Like, for example, they've already said that they're going to add a trading system, so I've got a note about it, but it's not something I'm going to be talking about too much. Next up, feature request. This is kind of quality of life, but feature request as well. The ability to turn off player collision. I think that would be pretty nice in the settings. It can be pretty frustrating just bumping into characters all the time, especially on runs like the Valby run. Next up, another feature that would be really cool is a XP boost per catalyst added on characters. This is an idea that I've seen on Reddit a few times. Basically, the idea is that the more catalyst that you add to a character, the easier it is to add the next one, because you're going to be constantly getting an XP boost on them. And also, this would allow you to get those like super max characters easier. So when you're doing your 7th or 8th or 9th catalyst, you'd be leveling up a lot faster. This would be gradual and reward more investment into characters to get them fully maxed, and would make them easier to get fully maxed. You'd still obviously need all the catalysts, but just more kind of quality of life for the game. Next up, it would be really cool. Right now, stabilizers in their current state just don't feel very good. You've got these stabilizers that are very rare to get. You use them, and like most of the time, even when you're using a stabilizer, it feels like you're still getting the reward that you are decreasing the chance to get. I think it would be really cool. There's many things that they could do with stabilizers. My suggestion is to allow it so that we can use multiple stabilizers on one amorphous. So it would increase the value. So right now, I think it goes from like 6% to 10% on the lowest. If you did one stabilizer, it would go from like 6 to 12. And then you could use another one on the same amorphous material to go from 12 to like 18. And then you could go from 18 to like 24, all while decreasing the cost of, or the like chance of the higher rewards. So your higher rewards at like 32% would be going down to like 14%, and your like lower rewards would be going up to like a 25%-ish kind of type deal. I think there's just a way that if you do spend a lot of time farming up things, you could go for these like super opens where you're giving yourself the best chance. This isn't making things like super easy to get, because you'd still need a bunch of stabilizers to like actually do this, and it wouldn't guarantee anything. It's no pity system or anything like that. It's just if you have all the materials, you can kind of go for those super opens, which could be kind of interesting. And I think that they should cap out at like 24%, aka like using 3 stabilizers at the max. So you couldn't just stack stabilizers until you're basically giving yourself a 100% chance. The next feature that I'd love to see is paintable base skins and more color options. The color options are pretty limited and like not very good looking. I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of surprised at how poor the like color customization is in this game for a game that's free to play, that usually makes all of their money off of customization on your characters. There's a lot to be improved upon, especially the lighting in terms of like what you paint your character to look like versus what they actually look like in game. almost always looks different, and it'd also be really nice to get the ability to paint back attachments. Next up, I'd love to see multiple chat channels. Right now, the world chat is just an absolute mess. Organizing them into different sections of chat so that it could be like a farming chat, like bossing LFG chat, a general chat, and like a looking for help kind of chat, or like asking questions chat. Just more ways to space it out so that there is more ways to find people to play with and more ways to get the help that you need if you are only using world chat as your way to communicate with other players. Speaking of ways to communicate with other players, I'd love to see a guild/clan feature implemented. This game is a game that is fun to play with people, and it's beneficial to play with people. I would love more ways to really build a community in the game, in terms of joining a clan, finding people to play with, maybe clan achievements or clan progress that we could work with to try to like bolster our clan and rank it up, I think would be awesome. And also with that, increasing friend capacity is maxed at 50 right now, which is pretty small. The next thing I'd love to see in terms of spicing up the game each season, obviously we haven't had season 1 launch yet, so we don't know exactly what their plans are, but in the past with content launches, we got new Transcendent modules for the new character and for the new ultimate. We're getting a new character and a new ultimate with the season, but I'd love for reasons to play my old characters or characters I've already played by adding new Transcendent modules, or buffing or reworking old Transcendent modules, not just adding to like the new characters. Transcendent modules breathe some of the best life into build diversity in this game, and there's so many of them that are just not very good, or characters that still have a lot of room to grow with Transcendent modules that could add a ton of things. So I'd love to see not only new ones for the new characters and new ultimates, but also for our existing characters to give incentive to play and grind those out more. Next up, they showed off kind of like an open world boss event in their like promotional trailers. I would love more reasons to play in the open world and more activities in them. I think open world like colossuses or bosses or invasions. Season 1 is called Invasion. I'm like fingers crossed that they actually do something with the open world, so that you could get an alert or something would be going on. You could go do an activity and with a bunch of players and get a bunch of cool loot, and it would happen like maybe a few times a day. Would be really, really nice. Next up, I'd love for more difficulty options and features in dungeons. Right now, they're like doing some cool reworks to the dungeons. However, the modifier system that they have right now is just not interesting. I would love to be able to crank the difficulty on dungeons, maybe increase the elite spawn rates in dungeons, maybe give me some wacky modifiers where I can like double the amount of bosses, and all of these things would maybe increase my score or give me better loot at the end. Maybe I could get the chance of a third Amorphous or maybe some extra gold or Kuiper, but I'd love some actual changes to the dungeons that really make them feel different, rather than just like, oh, they have 10% more damage, or oh, I deal 6% less damage, or things that like actually kind of change and vary the dungeons would be really cool. I'd also love to see with dungeons improved rewards for longer dungeons. Right now, there are dungeons that you can do in about 4 minutes, and there's dungeons that will take 12 to 15 minutes, and you get the basically same exact reward. Outriders had the same issue, and they ended up making it so that the longer dungeons gave you better loot. It would be really cool if I'm gonna farm an amorphous material from a dungeon that's gonna take me 15 minutes, I get maybe an extra amorphous from that, or maybe some extra rewards, so that I don't feel like I'm wasting my time doing long dungeons. They've already said that they're gonna be implementing something like this, but I did kind of just want to reinforce it. But I'd love to see a vendor to sell duplicate mats to. I don't need 20 Kyle blueprints. I don't need 15 smithereen parts. Once I've already built the smithereen, I'd love to be able to sell my duplicate mats, maybe for a material, maybe for gold, maybe for Kuiper. And it'd be really cool if they had like a rotating vendor like Barrow or Zur from Warframe and Destiny, where maybe that vendor could come with a few Transcendent modules each week that I could purchase, or maybe they've got a part of like a weapon that I could buy. Just something to be able to do with duplicate mats. Maybe being able to buy or purchase like stabilizers, and then I could use the stabilizers on things would be really, really cool. Just something to do with duplicate mats. I know they already mentioned that they're looking into that, but a vendor could be a cool way of doing that. Next up, trading system. They said they're going to be adding trading. I don't think this game needs trading right now at this very second. I think there's ways that they could solve the issues that this game has without implementing a player-to-player trading system. But trading system, when the game gets bigger and has more things, it's going to be pretty vital, especially for a healthy free-to-player economy. That's one of the things that Warframe does really well, is that you can play free-to-play and earn the premium currency by trading with other players. You can't really earn premium currency right now as a free-to-play player, which could be really cool, which is something that a trading system could solve. Next up, we've got some pretty crazy wish list things. I would love to see more traversal mods. I absolutely love the grappling mods. They're really cool. It'd be pretty awesome to get new traversal mods for, like, maybe I can blink. Like a blink ability on Sharon would be so cool with her one. Maybe we could get an extra ability for like a super jump, maybe a jetpack. These are just kind of like crazy things in the future, and more things in the future. I'd love to see more sub attacks added. The sub attacks are very plain: shock, punch, kick. Maybe give us a scythe, a katana, a glaive, a greatsword, things that make sub attacks cooler, and could be another way to build around, because right now sub attacks are very tame. Next up, I'd love to see some more playstyle mods. Right now, if you're playing a tank, it doesn't really matter if you can take a bunch of damage if the Colossus is just shooting at your squishy teammates. I'd love to see some playstyle mods that reinforce behavior, such as like you take increased aggro from Colossuses, but you take reduced damage. Things that kind of add to like a tank playstyle. Things that could add to your like damage style, maybe like an anticipated or like an ambush mod, but for guns. You deal more damage when shooting a Colossus in the back. That could also be really cool. Things that reinforce that like class identity. Next up, I'd love to see some more random world events. I mentioned world bosses earlier, but just maybe some more roaming elites. Maybe some things that could give you some loot every once in a while, like a caravan that's coming around with a loot chest. Things that could make the world feel more lived in and less empty would be awesome to see. Another thing that'd be really cool to see is super rare cosmetics. I'm talking less than 1% drops from like Colossuses. Borderlands 2 has like super rare cosmetic drops that you can get. Diablo 4 has super rare cosmetic drops. Things that aren't necessary, don't change your gameplay, but are kind of player trophies that you could collect and show off of, hey, you know, I killed Gluttony 100 times and got this less than 1% cosmetic drop, and I can show it off and I look really cool for it. Maybe it's a skin, maybe it's a back attachment, something like that. Super rare cosmetic drops that you could earn as a free-to-play player would be really cool. Another thing that could be really awesome is Transcendent modules for weapons. Transcendent modules add a lot to diversity on your current Descendant. We don't really have anything that's really adding diversity to weapons. Almost every weapon build that I've done is action and reaction, rifle reinforcement, crit chance, crit damage, weak point damage, throw on an element, and some mag size, and you could build almost everything the same. Some Transcendent modules to really reinforce certain playstyles on weapons and transform them could be really cool. My number one wish list is the ability to change handguns to akimbo handguns. I think it would be so cool, because right now handguns feel terrible, but if you could akimbo dual wield them, I'd love to like run around with akimbo pistols on Bunny. That would be awesome. And then the last thing is weekly dungeons. I'd love to see weekly dungeons added in. This would be a dungeon that for the week, which we're on a weekly rotation with our rewards, would maybe drop extra amorphous material, extra gold, or a Kuiper. Right now, the only reason to really run dungeons is for farming, specifically amorphous materials for certain things. But having like a weekly dungeon where, you know, you're going to be doing it and you could use it as a farm. You could do it just to get a bunch of random amorphous materials from that dungeon so that you could try to fish for like catalysts or energy activators. Could be really cool. It would reinforce dungeon playstyle more than just farming for like specific parts of weapons and Descendants, and just something to do. Our next section of the video, I know this is already a long video, but it's going to be talking about minor improvements and quality of life. These are things that I'd love to see just added to the game that I think they could add pretty quickly. So the first thing is reactors. I think farming reactors right now is a big pain. I would love that if they removed the ability for reactors to roll with elemental mismatch. There's no reason right now in the game you would ever want a fire reactor with chill boost ratio or a toxic reactor with electric boost ratio. Removing mismatch elements would help farm god roll reactors really a lot. It would make that farm feel a lot better. They could also add reactor stat rerolling. That would be nice. I think it's kind of one or the other. I don't want to be able to like just pick up one reactor off the ground and like perfectly craft it to exactly what I want. I don't want that at all. But some improvements for that reactor farm would be really nice. Next up, it'd be really cool if you could link your build in chat to share with other players, or if you could inspect other players in town to like view their builds. Just a cool way, like, oh, hey, is anyone running like a cool Sharon build? Let me link you my build, or what do you think of this build? I can link it to you in chat. Could be really, really nice. Next up, this is a potentially controversial one, but I think it'd be pretty solid for the health of the game and for co-op play. If you're going to random matchmake into boss fights in hard mode, that there is a minimum level that you enter it. There is no reason that a level 6 bunny should be entering my gluttony fight. A minimum level of your Descendant for hard mode bosses have like level 20. Obviously, that's up for debate. Maybe it's level 10. I think level 20 is pretty healthy. You can enter hard mode bosses on a level 20 Descendant. If you're not level 20, you can just go level up. And for like Frostwalker bosses, level and up. So for Frostwalker and Gluttony, maybe you need to be level 25 minimum, maybe level 30. But I do think that there's a lot of frustration with co-op matchmaking and kind of like that, like leaving right as you join in. I think that would feel a lot better if there was a requirement to be a certain level for hard mode bosses. Next up, outpost drop rates feel pretty bad. Surveillance towers basically do nothing. It would be really nice if you could go activate those surveillance towers, which increase your like time to infiltrate, which no one benefits from. If you could do that, and maybe that would give you a slight increase of your drop chances by base. So let's say I go into, or I'm about to do an outpost. I go do the surveillance tower. I boot it up. That's going to give me from 25% to 30% drop chance. I go do the outpost. It's over. And then in that 1 minute of downtime, instead of just sitting there and doing nothing, I could go hit up another outpost and, another surveillance tower, boost up my like chances, and then go back in. This would give you something to do instead of just waiting a minute AFK every time for an outpost to farm. And it would also improve the drop rates of outposts. Maybe it's 10% every time you do a surveillance tower. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 2. But I think incorporating those to increase your drop rates would be really cool. Some more quality of life features, the ability to mute specific players in world chat. If there's an account spamming, pay me to run this thing, or like check out my website for paid carries, you just mute those players. I got a few requests to add the feature for auto run to this list. I don't personally think I need an auto run, but it was something that was brought up quite a lot. Next up, I'd love to see shotgun, laser, and launcher buffs. Not too much to say there. Shotguns, lasers, and launchers, besides the vestigial organ, are just underperforming. I'd love to see buffs to those. Next up, some more options to increase HUD text size and HUD size, or text size and HUD size, and be able to fully customize your HUD would be really nice. Controller options for improved dead zone options, changing your sensitivity for different weapons so that you could have like a different sensitivity for a sniper versus an SMG, just more controller options. Fixing the bunny bug, where if you're shooting your weapon on bunny, you can just kind of, if your ability ends, you just stop shooting. Jaber also needs some bugs fixed with his like his turrets not scaling properly with his passive. Next up, it would be really nice if they toned down some of the homing on projectiles. There's some pretty ridiculous tracking on some of the enemies. That would be nice to see. There's also some modding issues right now. There's a lot of mods where you'll add it and it just doesn't increase the modifier or the power because it's like specific. Like if you're adding like a very specific boost, sometimes you just don't see those boosts. It would be very nice if they improved those tooltips. In addition, it would be nice if they made all elemental mods, both resistance and damage mods, the same polarity, or just make it a new polarity. It could be like an elemental polarity. It just seems really silly that if I want to save a slot for elemental resistance, I have to like repolarize it or like not mod it on all of my Descendants. And if I want to use a different element on my different weapons, I just can't. Obviously, with the changes to the like modding system, you will be able to more easier do that. But I just think it would be best if they just put all elemental mods to the same polarity so that if you want to use elements, you can. Just more quality of life. Another thing that would be really nice is to see golds added to vaults. I've had to open a bazillion vaults on my Enzo looking for some mods and getting a little bit of gold, not nearly as much gold as Kuiper. I still think those could be like reserved for Kuiper, but a way to get some extra gold while opening them would just be so nice. Gold at endgame is the big shortage, not Kuiper, and we need more ways to get some gold. Next up, I see a lot of complaints and kind of reservations on different players from, oh, I want to play this character, or I want to invest in this character, but they might get an ultimate in a month, or they might get an ultimate in a few weeks. Right now, we don't really know the ultimate schedule at all, so more transparency on what ultimates are coming when would be great. Or if you do invest into a Descendant and you want to dismiss them, being able to get refunded maybe the blueprints that you spent. So if you spent 4 catalysts on them, maybe you wouldn't get those built catalysts back, but you could get like 4 catalyst blueprints back. It's just something to kind of allow players to more safely invest into their characters without having to worry about wasting their materials. Maybe you get fully built things back, kind of obviously up to the devs, but just a way to get some of that resources and time spent on those characters back would be huge. Next up, I would love to be able to transmog normal Descendant features on ultimates and color-based ultimate skins. It just seems kind of silly that there's not all that many customization options in a free-to-play game. We need more ways to customize how we look. And finally, there's so many cool things that they could do with the training room. I would love a DPS meter in the training room where if I'm shooting at enemies, not only will I see my damage on the enemies, but I could see my damage in the past like 60 seconds or my average damage. It would be also really cool to have an option to make the enemies attack you so you can test tanky builds, the ability to invite friends or spawn allies so you could test buffs and synergies in the training room would be great. The ability to spawn a Colossus so that you could test your actual damage on like a Colossus in a controlled environment could be really cool. The other thing that would be awesome is the ability to like use maxed out mods or test out maxed out mods. Right now for like build crafting, I have to put so much resource and time into maxing mods that sometimes I never use because I needed to max them just to test them. It'd be great if I could like in the training room only like have the ability to just put on full max mods of everything and mess around with them and test them out, and then obviously out of the testing I could go decide on what I wanted to max. Would just be really nice quality of life. And the last thing is CPU optimization. This game runs really heavy on CPUs for some reason. I think it's part of the reason why the game stutters. Maybe that's more of a server issue, but fixing the stuttering / the CPU optimization would be really nice. Guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Obviously, this was a lot of stuff. I don't expect the devs to get to everything or maybe anything on this list, but if they've made one thing very apparent, it is that they are in tune with the community, they're listening, and the way that they've implemented changes quickly and respectfully to their player base has been pretty awesome. And so, you know, I wanted to put out this wish list and talk about the things that I'd love to see improved, because I think the game is absolutely fantastic, but it is still early on. It's only like a month and a bit out, and there's so many things that could make this game even better, and I just want to see this game continue to grow and improve. So that was my big laundry list of things that I would love to see implemented in the game. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what things you would like to see. If I missed anything and I can heart them and maybe add them to this document. That's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Take care. Peace.